All right. All right. Working. Okay. That should be working now. All right. Let me know in the chat. I've got top chat on. Forget that. We're in the live chat. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Mark Carney have met. He just went over there. It looks like there's one of you. He went over there. I'm going to put this on. This is just like a moment ago. Of course, you know, China's the opposite time zone. First days they met, like they made some deals, like memorandums of understanding, which is basically saying, okay, we'll allow things to thaw, and we won't go on these certain things to set the parameters for a later date. Next 2 days later, they just signed this deal, which Premier of Saskatchewan Mo, you can read this in the description too. Premier of Saskatchewan Mo went with him. He was like, whoa, what's going on? You're going to China? I got to sell my egg. He always calls it egg. They do that, like agricultural goods, right? And he went there with them. As Saskatchewan has, as far as I can see from the outside looking in, the most stringent, forward-thinking export department. I know I'm saying it very odd and weird, but the largest export desk, with budget and ambitions. Like they as soon as like this first came out, remember canola got hit, a few peas and a few other products, right? When the tensions started to rise with China, they got a desk together and they flew over to Dubai. They have a desk in Dubai. I think they have one in Pakistan or India. I'm not sure exactly where. Maybe Philippines, but they basically went everywhere in that part of the world where the majority of the populations are. So, they can't feed themselves when the populations are that high. It's a good thing. It was a good thing. For Canada, I think they did a pretty damn good job. His name, who is the actual expert guy on that desk, escapes me, but he was in charge and did a really good job. Premier Mo, of course, should get some credit, but that's where they were hit hard and they acted. And very frustrated Premier Mo was with this deal, or this lack of assistance and help selling their products. Apparently, they had these new cornmeal or meal plants, drying factories. They had a new factory that was just coming online the day it was canceled. So it was a pretty big deal to them. They're like, what do you mean? We got this factories start coming online like a week or something, and now you're going to cancel all this deals with China. It was basically specifically set up to sell to China, that plant. But now it looks to be down. Now, like I said, 16%. It's not 100% off. But the deals are, it looks like we're in a tariff world. We like it or not. Everyone, like all this media, I see this, okay, I'm going to go into a little of a tangent here. I see this as three levels that we see. There's two higher levels that are like, the space level, But the three levels that we see, there's the lowest level where they're just people screaming at each other, which we're seeing in Minnesota. And the media reports on, and the media that reports on that, they only say half truths. It's very biased. It's emotionally charged. And I don't mean, you know what I mean? It's all full of emotion. The next level is more to do with the average person's policies and things that are going on, international trade and tariffs and stuff like that, right? There's that level. And then there's this international military kind of level, foreign policy, that you know what I mean? Yes, you may have rhetoric against a certain place, but that doesn't mean you hate them, right? You know what I mean? And at every level, as you go higher up, people become nicer and to each other, Maybe not necessarily overall, but to each other, it becomes a nicer game, feeling game. Maybe more treacherous and larger than the end. But that's how I believe it goes. Anyway, that's a very weird tangent. Let's see what they got to say. Besides that, sorry. Like I said, and then there's the upper level, like the space kind of level where they're talking with them, and so on and so forth. But here's Xi Jinping. Don't you dare. No cartoon characters, right? There was a big deal. But Xi Jinping, I like him or hate him, he's been doing very, very well for China. Since he got in, the Chinese economy and everything has just roared. And so since Canada has had too much. It looks like, okay, I honestly believe that there was a tension coming up, that there was a possibility of World War III-ish. Now I don't feel it. I don't feel it at all. I feel that we're all going to have little spheres of being pricks, like Russia's doing, like maybe China. Well, hopefully they will remain peaceful. But it does. No one feels it. Like, especially their side. Look, they just lost Venezuela as an actor. See, Venezuela wasn't necessarily as big of an actor. It could have been a very power play in the oil, but because of abuse of their own industry, they were kind of canceling themselves out. But since Russia couldn't help them anymore, because Russia's focused on what they're focused on, right? They're gone. They're out of the play. It looks like Iran is not necessarily, like, it's not out. I'm not going to call it yet, but they're out of the game per se. Like, they're going to be able to give China oil or a couple countries oil, but because their economy and their dollars fallen so much, and China and Russia haven't been able to help them. They're focused on Ukraine, so that's going on. It's basically a stalemate. Ukraine loses like an inch a day, That's basically what we have going on there. And so they've lost another large, I call them a delinquent. Iran, going into Iran would be a disaster. It would take millions of lives. But if you just contain them, they're an irritant. So is Venezuela. So those two, and they're a major irritant, very major countries. I see Venezuela as becoming very, very rich and powerful. And Iran was rich and powerful before the 1979, before their, So that doesn't make our tensions with China higher. These two wins have made our tensions with China much lower. No proxies win these places. And then the 9 wars that Trump's up. I personally believe we are at a more peaceful place. It's going to be an economic war, I believe, more than anything else. And that's, I think, Seinfeld. I didn't get to see the movie, but of course I only see the thing. But in essence, like I seen in his interviews, but in essence, how he did that post versus Kellogg movie, that Seinfeld movie, is basically where we're headed into. We're going to be headed into. It's a commercial competition. It's not, you know what I mean. We're not life and death. It's not necessarily serious. Now, everyone could be wrong, but this could be a good thing for Canada. I'm not sure about the EVs, how that's going to go over. I want to see Volpe, the union, auto workers union member. I want to hear what he has to say and what Doug Ford has to say. He's probably on the phone with every company. He's on the phone right now, no doubt. It's 5 a.m. with all the car companies. But Canada's definitely having a bunch of issues. So here we go. Let's play. They're having, let's play. Okay, so there's no sound on this part. So far, they did the shaking hands. Here's the delegation. They do speak. Carney speaks. I have a speech coming up next. This is just the first, the shaking of hands, and the cameraman is not very good. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Please have a seat.
Zhengzhou.
Excellencies, please put on the earpiece for the simultaneous interpretation. Thank you.
Whoa! Yep, ceiling. There we go. There we go. Look at a nice table. That's a small table.
Let's begin the meeting. Prime Minister Carney, welcome to China. And I welcome this great ministerial delegation. I am very pleased to meet you again. Last October, we met in Zhengzhou, the Republic of Korea. It was a very good meeting. That meeting, I believe, marked a turnaround in the China-Canada relations and placed it on an upward trajectory. In the past couple of months, the agencies of our two countries have engaged in deep discussions on resuming and restarting cooperation across the board and produced positive results. I am heartened by the progress. This is your first visit to China as Prime Minister, and the first visit to China by a Canadian Prime Minister in more than 8 years. A healthy and stable China-Canada relationship serves
Okay, I just want to stop that for a second. And okay, see Hodges, Jolie on his right. You know, he's doing a pretty good job. Oh shoot, it's been a while. Jolie Anand, of course, and Carney. You can see his a touch of his hairline. Dubois. That's who that is in the background. So there was a few. He didn't bring a lot of other people. He didn't bring a lot of business leaders, to my knowledge. Though I'm not sure who this first individual is on the far right. He may be that himself, or some kind of secretary or something. So here, I'll let it play. Thanks for watching.
the common interest of our two countries. It is also good for the peace, stability, and prosperity of the world. I am ready to continue working with you with a sense of responsibility for the history, for the people, and for the world, to further advance the relationship in a positive direction and bring it on a track of healthy, steady, and sustainable development for the benefit of the people of both countries. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you, President Xi, for your hospitality, for the warm welcome that's been extended to this delegation, and for the opportunity that our partnership brings to both our peoples, and I would suggest as well to the world. Lorsque nous sommes rencontrés pour la dernière fois à Guangzhou, nous avons identifié des domaines clés dans lesquels le Canada et la Chine peuvent travailler ensemble d'une manière cible et avec
Canada and China
respect
working together, so on and so forth.
I'm extremely pleased that we are moving ahead with our new strategic partnership. A partnership that is founded on 5 pillars will not only deepen our bilateral ties to the benefit of our peoples, but will also, in my judgment, help improve the multilateral system, a system that in recent years has become under great strain. We're focusing on areas where we can make historic gains in agriculture, in energy, in finance. That's where we can make the most immediate progress. But that progress in our judgment, will be multiplied by the welcome expansion of our cultural and people-to-people ties. 20 years ago, great steward of the Canada-China relationship, then Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, said of our partnership, and I quote, "Nations feel most secure when they see countless connections between them to work to their mutual advantage, and it's that engagement that builds true peace and security." Today, decades on, these principles are the foundation of our new strategic partnership. Mr. President, together we can build on the best of what this relationship has been in the past to create a new one, adapted to new global realities that will deliver stability, security, and prosperity to our peoples on both sides of the Pacific. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was pretty good. Succinct, I would say. It was fairly succinct. And P. Jolie looks pretty pleased with it. Or is that I just paused it at a inopportune time? And he's right. Chrétien is the one who opened up I think he did the best trade mission. I was hoping that Carney would copy it. He didn't copy it, but he got some deals anyway. It was a big waste of money, spending spree. They brought all the politicians, all kinds of like a little bit of artists, and a lot of business leaders to China to basically, do business deals as much as possible. Now, since then, since Chrétien went there, our factories have been hollowed out and shipped over to China, and we're really in a bad situation. If you don't have a university education, it's a lot tougher in this country now. And there may, I don't know if we're going to get a shift back. Everyone's praying for it, but I believe, I'm a firm believer that being articulate with your hands, hand to mind and muscle to mind, can be as high of a brain order, like brain power, as a mathematician. It's my opinion. I believe that a society that doesn't have folks who are very good working with their hands and use their hands, obviously. You have to almost work with your hands to be able to be good, but not always, but it helps. And that is a required part of the society that also whips out mathematicians, you know what I mean? They're children. Mathematicians every once in a while. But those mechanical-minded, hand-to-mind, mind-to-muscle people flip over to the other side and come up with brilliant ideas. I believe it's about working the brain. And when you work the brain, you just thing, you know what I mean? You become smarter. And you can do it in a million different ways. You can study paint, different types of paint in history, and become this genius. You can become a pole vaulter, so on and so forth. Anyway, I don't want to go on too far. I think that this is a pretty decent deal. I don't know what the car companies are going to say. They may be flipping. To me, it feels like I feel like a little bit of heart palpitation, a little bit when I think of it. As I see the size of the factory, check out the post I put. You can see the factory, and it's basically written downstairs. Though there's a huge potential for these plants to come to Canada, or us to maybe adapt some of our factories to that. There has to be a major incentive, and I don't know what was happening with that. There has to be a major boost in power in Canada and manufacturing work. I believe the mind to muscle work. And so we're going to see it here. Let's see if there's any comments. I don't think so. No comments. Sign into chat. This could be a good deal. This is going to be a decent deal for consumers. I Googled up... So the BYD is basically the company. They're going to say maybe, 50,000 cars, and there may be other companies, but BYD is the big one. Most likely they'll all be BYD that'll come here, right? It'll be the biggest company. But maybe another one. But at 49,000 cars, I seen their one car, their cheapest car is the Dolphin, and it's like a Fiesta. It reminds me of the Fiesta. and it goes for 25,000 pounds, British pounds. So like, I don't know. It's not. I haven't seen the rate, but they used to be double, 2.5. A double are a money. So that's like $50,000 for a Fiesta. Is that what it's going to be? I'm not sure. So if that is the case, they're not going to crush the market. But if they're coming in at $10,000-$15,000 cars, which was the original fear, if they're bringing in their $10,000 cars, their 50,000 cars will sell like hotcakes in an instant. But we don't know. This is all details are to follow, because it may be a headache to ship to Britain. Well, we know it is a headache. First of all, they got to put the driver's console on the other side, so they got to change a line just for Britain, right? So there is that. They don't have any tariffs. Britain doesn't have any tariffs, but there may be other hidden fees to sell those cars in Britain. And there may be fees for the car dealers. I'm not sure. So, but the way it looks at it, I look at it right now. We're looking at like $40,000 to $50,000 for their cheapest electric vehicle, which to me seems pretty high. I haven't been looking at new car prices lately, so I don't know. Leave your comment. I'm not sure where that where that is on the scale. Hey, maybe cars are selling for 70. I don't know. Honestly, don't. But it seemed to be high. But maybe it's just Britain. So we're gonna have to see that. But Premier Mo is basically doing the happy dance. He's it doesn't seem to be there. Maybe he's in the bathroom doing the happy dance, because his peas and his canola meal are now going to be able to be sold in China, and that's a big. They're just one buyer. Boom, they can sell all their thing to one area, one country, one jurisdiction. It's going to be they're going to be very happy. And then the lobster and crab fishermen, so that's coast to coast to coast. All three coasts. Well, the third coast doesn't really have much of an industry. Arctic char. You can get that from the Arctic. They ship it they fly it into Ottawa, so the price is pretty hard. But Arctic char is I believe it's the best fish. It's salmon, but better. That's the way I say it. Salmon and trout mix. It's just better. Arctic char. So so the crabs and lobster fishermen are going to be happy to be able to sell to China. That was a bit of a headache. It brought down the lobster prices, and I imagine crab as well. So there's these two deals, and let them talk. Oh. Xi doesn't like to smile. He is not a smiley guy, eh? He's not guy smiley. He's not like Trudeau. Very serious businessman, scary-ish almost, and a very deep voice for It always sounds like he's at a dojo or something, karate dojo. He has that very. I guess that's from being a supreme leader, May have something to do with it. Very serious. Why so serious? But okay, here is Carney's speech. I'm going to bring that up right now. Just going to put that down and pull this up. This is a big deal. This is a real big deal. As I read in the papers that Pierre is trying to make, I don't want to say deals, but try to make peace with the rest of them, rest of the Ontario premiers. The Conservative premiers. Ontario, Doug Ford, I guess Outhouse called him, the new guy. And also Houston trying to, make peace. But I honestly see, if this goes without, if this goes decent in the media, this deal, Carney's he's just saved himself a year. If this explodes, if this is a really bad deal because the details aren't here. We don't have all the details. We're going to hear more in a second here. I'll bring this up for you. We're going to see it in a second. Sorry. But if this becomes like this, oh my, big political nightmare. Okay, yeah, maybe we'll see an election in a year. But if this goes decent, then we've got 2 more years. So basically, the way I see it is, he'll probably serve his 4-year mandate if this turns out okay. Just this deal with China, thawing with China and being able to sell our stuff to China takes a lot of pressure off of large industries in this country. We don't refine enough in this country, and China can be a tough opponent because they are much wealthier than us, and as many of them saying, well, I'm not going to say it. Okay, let's listen. He's walking. I like that the nice pond in the background. It looks frozen. Shenzhen.
All right. Good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour.
C'est un grand plaisir d'être ici pour ma première visite en Chine en tant que Premier ministre. Et je tiens tout
Don't
d'abord
worry, he only
à
speaks a few lines
remercier
of French.
le président Xi Jinping et le Premier ministre Li pour leur hospitalité qu'ils nous ont témoigné ici à Beijing.
The
It has
Chinese have been very
historic
hospitable.
and productive 2 days, during which myself and fellow ministers have had the opportunity to meet with President Xi, Premier Li, Chairman Zhao, as well as business leaders across a number of key sectors. And I am very pleased to announce that we have made significant progress in a number of key areas. Stepping back, it's been 8 years since a Canadian Prime Minister visited China. And in that time, the world has changed dramatically. The technological revolution and the energy transition are accelerating at an unprecedented pace. The global trading system is undergoing a fundamental change, and the effectiveness of multilateral institutions on which trading powers such as Canada and China have greatly relied, that effectiveness has been greatly reduced. This is happening fast, it's large, it's a rupture, it's not a transition. What we do now as Canada, how we position ourselves in the world, will shape our future for decades to come. Canada can thrive in a new system, but to do so, we must be ambitious. We must work at speed and scale to find new partners, to diversify our trade, and attract unprecedented levels of investment in our country. And we must be pragmatic. That means we have to understand the differences between Canada and other countries, and then focus our efforts to work together where we're aligned. And it's with this approach that Canada is forging a new strategic partnership with China. China is the world's second largest economy. It contributes 1/3 to global growth. It's our second largest trading partner and our third largest investor. Two-way trade between our countries amounts to nearly $120 billion a year. There are 400,000 careers across Canada. Farmers in the prairies, manufacturers and engineers in Ontario and Quebec, fish harvesters in Atlantic Canada and British Columbia, they are all supported by trade with China. $20 billion in wages are earned each year by Canadians because of our existing trade relationship. And this is a relationship that has been distant and uncertain for nearly a decade. That has held back investment, it's stalled business growth, and cost Canadian workers good opportunities. And it has had the consequence of leaving us even more dependent on our largest trading partner. And that's why immediately after the election, Canada's new government began to recalibrate our relationship with China, strategically, pragmatically, and decisively. Peu après les élections, j'ai discuté avec le Premier ministre Li. 2 mois plus tard, nous nous sommes rencontrés à New York. En octobre, j'ai rencontré le président Xi en Corée du Sud. avec un dialogue soutenu, constructif et pragmatique, notamment à travers les visites de nos ministres
Yeah, as I say,
et des membres de
he
notre
doesn't
caucus
speak much
en
French. A couple
Chine.
lines.
Nous renouvelons cette relation avec.
But his French has gotten a lot better. If you haven't noticed, he doesn't stumble on his each individual word as he did. But here's back to English.
Ours is a long-standing relationship. Canada was one of the first Western nations to recognize China in 1970. Over many decades, Chinese Canadians have helped build communities in every part of our country, from dynamic small businesses to schools and hospitals, straight through to innovation across advanced technologies. Partout en Chine, il y a des entreprises canadiennes comme Manuvie, CAE et la Banque de Montréal qui font affaire en Chine depuis longtemps. Leur présence ici bénéficie aussi évidemment à l'économie canadienne. Et j'aurai le plaisir de rencontrer plusieurs de ces entreprises plus tard dans la journée. Je serai heureux de leur parler des possibilités élargies qui s'offrent à elles. There are 2 million Canadians of Chinese descent, leaders across commerce, technology, and culture. Mandarin is Canada's fourth most spoken language. There is much to protect in this relationship and much on which to build and much to be gained. So leveraging our strengths and focusing on areas of alignment, Canada and China can create greater stability, security, and prosperity for both our nations. And to that end, President Xi and I are announcing that Canada and China are forging a new strategic partnership. It will focus on 5 key areas where both our nations stand to make substantial and sustained gains. The first is in clean energy and climate competitiveness, areas where Canada and China have immense strengths and complementary strengths. Second, we're expanding trade, particularly in agriculture and food, where Canada is a reliable partner. Third, our commitment to multilateralism and strengthening global governance comes at a time when all of this is in flux. Fourth, we're deepening engagement in public safety and security to protect our peoples. And finally, people-to-people ties and culture are being enhanced to enrich our lives. To begin, we're leveraging our strengths in energy, clean tech, and climate competitiveness. Canada is an energy superpower in both conventional and clean energies. We have an over 80% clean electricity grid with vast potential to power the clean economy of the future. La Chine est le leader mondial de l'énergie propre, produisant plus de 75% de toutes les batteries de véhicules électriques.
The security part, where he said the security agreements, I have no idea what that means. It seemed,
Avec un partenariat renforcé tant dans le stockage que dans ce qui a trait à la production, nous pourrons coopérer pour réduire les émissions et stimuler de nouveaux investissements massifs dans les technologies et l'énergie propre. China's strengths in electric vehicle sector are undeniable. China produces some of the most affordable and efficient energy-efficient vehicles in the world. And in order for Canada to build our own competitive EV sector, we need to learn from innovative partners, access their supply chains, and increase local demand.
oh, I've been saying that for a long
The
time.
potential of these partnerships and bring down costs for Canadians, Canada has agreed to allow up to 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into the Canadian market, with the most favored nation tariff rate of 6.1%.
Volpe's head's exploding, I
This
think.
is a return to the levels that existed prior to recent trade frictions. But it's a return under an agreement that promises much more for Canadians. It's expected that within 3 years, this agreement will drive considerable Chinese investment in Canada's auto sector, creating good careers in Canada and accelerating our progress towards a net zero future and the auto industry of the future. With this agreement, it's also anticipated that within 5 years, more than 50% of these vehicles will be affordable EVs with an import price of less than $35,000. Over the next 15 years, Canada intends to double our energy grid through major investments in hydro, nuclear, solar, and wind power. That creates tremendous opportunities for Chinese partnerships in these investments, including in energy storage and offshore wind. On the other hand, Canada is developing our oil and natural gas reserves, one of the world's largest, to be the lowest risk, lowest cost, and lowest carbon. Last June, we exported our first LNG shipment to Asia, and we're scaling up quickly, making major investments in streamlining approvals. By 2030, Canada will produce 50 million tons of LNG each year, all of which will be destined for Asian markets. Au cours des semaines et des mois qui viennent, nous lancerons un nouveau dialogue ministériel pour accélérer la concrétisation de nos engagements concernant les énergies propres et conventionnelles. The second pillar of our strategic partnership aims to increase trade directly between Canada and China. Our agricultural cooperation built the foundation of our bilateral relationship. For more than 6 decades, Canada has been a reliable partner for China in food exports. Canadians export more than $7 billion in agricultural products to China each year. China used to be the largest market for Canadian canola seed. We want to not just return to those levels, but to surpass them. And so I'm pleased today to announce that Canada and China have reached a preliminary but landmark trade agreement to remove trade barriers and reduce tariffs. By March the 1st, Canada expects that China will lower tariffs on Canadian canola seed to a combined rate of approximately 15%. China is a $4 billion canola seed market for Canadian producers, and this change represents a significant drop from the current combined tariff levels of 84%. Furthermore, Canada expects that Canadian canola meal, as well as Canadian lobsters, crabs, and peas, will not be subject to relevant anti-discrimination tariffs from March 1st of this year until at least the end of this year. Together, these results will unlock nearly $3 billion of export orders for Canadian farmers, fish harvesters, and processors as they realize the full potential of this market of 1.4 billion people. With this agreement, we also expect to see a resolution of many long-term obstacles for a range of important agricultural sectors, from beef to pet food. Le Canada a un but ambitieux d'augmenter nos exports.
Okay, so this is basically, as long as something doesn't happen until March, this looks like to be the deal. So it's going to keep on going as it is, and then by March, China is going to take off the tariffs on our peas, lobster, crabs, and canola meal.
Welcome Chinese business plans to significantly scale up their investment in Canada in major clean energy projects, as well as in agriculture and consumer projects. And by building this new strategic partnership, we're creating the stability and certainty needed to catalyze new investment and opportunities for Canadian workers. Both Canada and China are strong advocates of multilateralism. Nous partageons plusieurs objectifs en ce qui a trait à l'environnement. Le leadership du Canada et de la Chine a permis de créer avec succès le cadre mondial pour la biodiversité économique mondiale lors de la COP 15 à Montréal. C'est pourquoi le troisième pilier de notre partenariat stratégique a un engagement renouvelé envers la gouvernance mondiale. En collaborant davantage, le Canada et la Chine peuvent se concentrer sur les nombreux domaines d'intérêt commun, allant de la compétitivité climatique et des finances à la...
Okay, I'm going to pause for a second and read the comments. So someone said the EVs don't work in minus 10 degrees. I think they've got it a bit better than that now. I think it's, I know that this, when I first bought a camera, high-end camera, but it was made for a warmer climate. So they weren't insulated. It wouldn't work in Canada. Like, it wouldn't work in the winter. I literally had to warm it up, and in the cold it would last like no time. And it was all to do with insulating of the wiring. That is what they figured. They found out. They're like, oh, we got to insulate this stuff. So there's a possibility that they've gotten better, but we don't know. I don't know what you're saying about the conspiracy. What conspiracy? Remember they said us. What truth? Was the plan all along EVs? I don't think that. The 100% tariffs on the Chinese. I did like how he said, Mark Carney said, we have to import their things, and basically what we have to do is send the Volpes, or not the Volpe. Volpe is the guy. He's the head of the union, the auto workers union. That's why I would say him. And he's Italian. He says what he thinks, right? But they need to send like CSIS spies in there, kind of thing, corporate spies. And then so we could make the similar vehicles here, just like they do to us. And then make a Canadian-made vehicle. If USMCA is no longer, which is a big deal, if that is no longer, we can make our own cars here. It's a possibility to have our own car company, call it Canada with a K, It probably would sell pretty good to Australians, to other places, especially cold climates. Anyway, I digress. The March is the deal. So we got March is how long that this has to last, and then they will go down. If something happens in between that time, well, then all bets are off. Nothing happened, and we have to wait to see if China actually follows through. I don't see them not following through, but who knows what the future holds? I just suspected it to start right away. But them keep saying March is like, okay, well. It does seem like this, it could be, I think it seems like it's a good deal, though I need to see what the auto workers have to say. Doug Ford is probably going to do a statement very early this morning, and I like the steam whistle coming out of his ears. Okay, let's listen to the man.
Économique et au multilatéralisme. China will be the host of APEC this year, and Canada stands ready to support their agenda, focused on strengthening and reinvigorating the multilateral system. Canada appreciates China's support for our bid to host the APEC's Leaders Summit in 2029. The fourth pillar of our new strategic partnership is public safety and security. And this is an area where pragmatic and constructive engagement with China is crucial.
If you ever want to practice your reflexes, I try to pause on a blink, and my reflexes are pretty good. This is the scary part to me. I ask you all to listen carefully to this next part and parse it out as you hear it. I don't know what he's about to say. We're both coming at this new. I've seen another report before this, but I don't know what his words are. Is he going to be talking about, like, in Niagara region there was a police station? Is he talking about that type of security? Is he talking about how was it the RCMP and certain embassies were buying Chinese scanners, as you go into the embassy and all that stuff, and then they got blocked, when all these things were going on. What is exactly he saying? And I imagine every word has a lot of weight. So let's hear what he has to say.
Through this pillar, our law enforcement agencies will increase cooperation to better combat narcotics trafficking, transnational crime, cybercrime, synthetic drugs, and money laundering. And we will create safer communities for people in both our countries. And finally, people have always been at the core of this relationship. As I said, Canada's home to a Chinese diaspora of 2 million. Over 300,000 Chinese visitors came to Canada in 2024. China is Canada's 7th largest source of tourism. So the fifth pillar of this partnership will build on opportunities for cultural exchanges and partnerships that further deepen our people-to-people ties. That means museums, digital content creators, visual artists, and other creative professionals in our respective countries will have new opportunities to collaborate. It also means more tourism, including following China's decision in November to grant approved destination status for group travelers to Canada. And we're building on this progress, looking to increase travel, exchange, and deepen our cultural ties. I'm very pleased to share that President Xi, in our meeting today, has committed to ensuring visa-free access for Canadians traveling to China. Nous ne faisons aucune illusion. Le Canada et la Chine ne s'alignent pas surtout. We're different countries. We have different systems, different histories, different perspectives. Yet, we have much in common. And when we focus on our strengths and we focus our ambition towards those areas where we have the most in common, Canada and China have done great things. In the mid-1980s, our bilateral trade was roughly $2 billion. In just 2 decades, that increased to $30 billion. Through periods of global tension and disruption, we've created more opportunities for our workers, businesses, and investors by working together. And with this new strategic partnership, that's the opportunity before us now. It's a partnership that reflects the world as it is today, with an engagement that's realistic, respectful, and interest-based. The work in the recent months, the discussions and the meetings over the past 2 days have not been a question of putting things back on track. It's been more a question of designing new tracks that will benefit the people of both our countries. Parce que le système mondial a été chamboulé. Le Canada doit tracer une nouvelle voie en naviguant dans le monde tel qu'il est et non comme nous aimerions qu'il soit. Nous traçons cette voie avec confiance, pragmatisme et ambition. In a world of increasing uncertainty, Canada is building with speed, confidence, and determination. We're forging new partnerships around the world. We're diversifying trade. Over a dozen new agreements across 4 continents in recent months. We're attracting record levels of new investment in order to unleash $1 trillion of investment in the Canadian economy over the next 5 years. We're building a web of new connections with China to create transformative opportunities for Canadian workers, build more stability, more certainty, and prosperity on both sides of the Pacific. And with that, I very much look forward to your questions. Thank you very much. Merci
Thank you,
beaucoup.
Prime Minister. Merci. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période.
You can see how ecstatic he is awaiting his. I just see a lie. He just lied. I eagerly await your questions. Oh yeah, he does. He's like, oh God. 5-point pillar plan for you reporters. It's a 5-point plan that should be written up. The last one is okay. The fourth one, the security, was concerning to me, but he alleviated my concerns. He says it's basically the drugs. The drugs, that's all he talked about, the drugs. So the drug situation, we all know that fentanyl is coming from China. It was invented in Calgary. But the precursors and all this stuff, so they mix it together. I don't know what the hell they do here. But they basically, the precursor chemicals are coming from China. And China doesn't have a fentanyl problem. So basically, they're going to, there's somehow it's going to stop in China being sent here. That's what he's saying. We'll see. I hope so. I really do hope so. I don't believe. I think that there's too much of a demand in our stupid minds in the West here for drugs. I personally am okay with. We have enough that are legal, but hey, to each their taste. But fentanyl is one that needs. We can't stop. So in essence, we can't stop them all. But fentanyl, I believe it must be stopped. The numbers are. They're saying 7,000 people are dying in the Ukraine war every month. Or sorry, that's every week. But we're getting 7,000 in at least the States every month. Sometimes we have higher numbers in the States, and they have 10 times our population. So we've been hit a lot harder. The fentanyl needs to be stopped. I think there needs to be programs to get people off it. I've never touched the stuff, thank God. I don't like the slow, and I believe that we have enough. Like there's cannabis, there's like you can, I don't know, moonshine legal, you know. Anyway, so the deal there on the fourth one was that. The fifth one was about tourism. Now we're what did he say, number 7 or something like that, or. In 2004, 2005, no one came, no Chinese came, but bringing back Chinese tourism is a huge deal. Canada has a lot of things a Chinese person wants. They remember the ones that are coming here live in the cities, so they're used to being very, very close. Not like India, like where they don't have much personal space. Even the higher ups, you know. Not so much that, but they definitely are a lot, you know, they are not used to the open spaces that we have in Canada. Driving 15 minutes just to go to the corner store is normal, right? Anyway, I digress. So basically China and Canada tourism is a big deal. I would like to, you know, their money is green, right? This is great. Tourism, I believe, is the best industry. Anyone can, if you can get it, because remember, I'm in Niagara Falls. So if you can get it, all it is people looking at Niagara Falls. We're still pulling power out of the thing. Just there's a little less water, but people are looking at it. They're spending money to look at this thing. It's wonderful. And what happens is there's this thing is called Niagara Parks. There's a Niagara Parks Commission, and they're like, they got a lot of money because they own a bunch of touristy destination things along the waterfalls, and they're really, really good things. I'm going to get into that. I could speak about that for hours, but they got all these wonderful things that make money. So the city of Niagara Falls, because of this Niagara Parks Commission, they get more money to make other parts of the city nice, like the downtown. That isn't the touristy part is got a big boost, I don't know, a decade ago because of the money made from the tourist industry. So what tourism does, it helps preserve and keep clean your area. So this is good if you can get it. And us losing the Chinese tourism was pretty hard on a lot of people from what I could tell, what I heard. So that's the big fifth pillar. The fifth pillar of his tourism, and he said something about collaborations with basically YouTubers. I don't know what he means by that. That would be cool. I'd like that. That'd be neat. Do tourism stuff for the Chinese and vice versa. You know, try to sell Canada tourism. Like I said, I believe it's the best industry if you can get it. If you can get it. Like Niagara Falls, not every town has Niagara Falls, right? So it's not, you know, but it's consistent year after year, right? If that water falls, we got people that want to see it, and it is a sight. I live here, I see it all the time, and it still is like like wow, this is really. It's really powerful to me. It's awe-inspiring. Okay, so Carney's did the 5-point pillar plan, and let's hear about the Q&A. We'll see how well this goes and the details, and I think people's heads are exploding right now. Some for good, some for bad. Like the agriculture industry, egg industry, their heads exploding for joy. The tourist industry is doing the moonwalk. The car industry, I think, is their heads exploding for negative reasons. Though this could be an opportunity if he comes back here and incentivizes Canadian car companies. I don't even know if we even have any besides Magna and stuff like that help companies. But GM Canada's been here for a long time, 100 years. Ford's been here a long time. So, you know what I mean? Canadian, I mean like that. Okay, let's hear what he has to say. Thanks for watching.
The question, first question, Tonda. We'll do one question, one follow-up.
Tonda with Charles, Toronto Star, right here, Prime Minister, right here.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. Sorry.
Hi.
I'm in plain sight. Sorry.
We're so many reporters here, so it'll be one question. We won't take follow-ups, but please bear with us. Prime Minister, this announcement I'd like you to characterize it in terms of how big an entry into the market you expect it really is, and how do you intend to explain it to the U.S. In allowing that entry? And separately, how do you intend to explain it to Canadian car makers who fear any softening on Chinese EVs?
Okay, so you mean the auto portion of the broader partner? Yes, okay. So I think the first thing to say is exactly that it's part of a broader partnership, and the fundamental issue is we have a broader strategic partnership on which to build and create big opportunity. But to get to the auto question and your various questions around specifically, let's put this in context. 49,000 vehicles, which is the cap on Chinese electric vehicle exports to Canada, that's part of this agreement. That's a return to levels last seen in 2023, the last full year before the Canadian tariff actions. That's the first point. Second point, again, to put it in, dimension it, that's less than 3% of the size of the Canadian auto market. The third point, to put in context, and I reference this, is that part of this.
Okay. All right. Okay. Less than 3% of the auto industry. Okay, so that does put it in perspective. I see 49. I don't know how many car sales we do every year, right? Okay, so less than 3% of our car sales can be now BYD. Build your dreams. Okay, so that puts it in perspective. It's not as big of a deal as I thought it was. So there's alleviation of fears for me. I don't know about you. Leave your comment.
Agreement, and it takes a few years to build this, a couple of years to build this, that increasing portion of those exports will be in a new segment of the Canadian market. In other words, electric vehicles that cost less than $35,000 at the landed price. So there's huge opportunity here to get more affordable cars in the electric vehicle market for Canada. The fourth element, and in many respects the most important element, is the beginning of discussions and expectation of Chinese investment in Canada and partnership in Canada to produce vehicles over time, so to partner with Canadian firms. And putting all this, and if I can take the last part of your question then move to colleagues, which is vis-a-vis the U.S., I think we need to look at this in the context of building. I mean, we're building a new part of our car industry, building cars of the future in partnership, bringing affordable autos for Canadians at a time when affordability is top of mind, and doing it at a scale that allows for a smooth transition in the sector. Thanks.
Next question, Steve.
Steve Chase, Globe and Mail. Good afternoon. This week, 2 Liberal MPs cut short their visit to Taiwan. It was a friendship and outreach visit. They cut it short before they were going to meet with President William Lai. They said in a statement that they were advised to do this by the government. So why did the government advise these 2 Liberal MPs to cut short their visit? And is this an indication we're willing to tailor our foreign policy to placate Beijing?
Well, a couple of things. One is our policy with respect to Taiwan, our One China policy, which was set in 1970, has not changed. We're reaffirming our One China policy. It remains constant. It's consistent. We have relations with the government here, People's Republic of China, and we have people-to-people relations in Taiwan. Those MPs, members of my caucus, members of our caucus, participated in the people-to-people proportion of that trip. But no, not in the government proportion, and that's straightforward, not causing confusion about what the policy is of the government, the policy of Canada that has been the policy of Liberal governments and the policy of Conservative governments over the course of the last 55 years.
Prochaine question, Laurence.
Oui, bonjour, M. Carney, Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada. Dans la stratégie Indo-Pacifique, le Canada décrivait la Chine comme une puissance.
By building resilience, building security, you manage those threats through alliances. You manage those threats through engagement, and we're pursuing all of those.
I just skipped the French
I would
part
say
for you.
That the threat environment has increased. The risks have multiplied. So too has our resilience and our engagement, which is protecting Canadians on balance.
But is that threat from
Next
China still
question.
exist?
I'll refer to my previous answer.
Next question, Martina.
Prime Minister Martina Stavis, New York Times. After your visit, is it fair to say that you're concluding that China is a more predictable and maybe reliable partner to Canada than the United States is today?
Well, let me answer it. I'm going to answer it directly with respect to the relations with China and our engagement with China. And I will say that from the first conversation I had with Premier Lee, telephone conversation, then the meeting in New York, the long meeting with President Xi in Korea, and then the meetings over the course of the last few days. There are a number of specific issues, and I've outlined them that where we've made progress in our strategic partnership. But we spent a fair bit of time in all of those meetings about the guardrails, if you will, of the relationship, where we felt we could cooperate, where we had differences of opinion, where we had differences of view in the system, respecting each other's differences in the system. And that sort of candid and consistent dialogue, frank dialogue, that leads to a more predictable and effective relationship. Our relationship, the one comparison I will give you with the United States, our relationship, this is no insight, is much more multifaceted, much deeper, much broader than it is with China. But yes, in terms of the way that our relationship has progressed in recent months with China, it is more predictable, and you see results coming from that.
Next question.
La fin sur la prévisibilité, juste la toute.
La prévisibilité, oui, c'est well, c'est nécessaire de faire une petite explication parce que il y a des enjeux clairs pour la coopération entre le Canada et la Chine. Il y a des défis, mais ils sont aussi clairs. Et alors, par conséquent, oui, les relations avec la Chine sont plus prévisibles maintenant que d'autres relations pour le Canada.
Next question. Prochaine question, Mylène.
Bonjour, M. Carney.
Bonjour, madame.
Mylène Crête de la presse. Je voulais savoir qu'est-ce que vous allez répondre à Doug Ford qui voulait une usine en échange de l'ouverture du marché canadien aux véhicules électriques chinois. Et pourquoi est-ce que les tarifs sur le port sont demeurés les mêmes?
Deuxième partie après. Mais ce qui est clair, et on a fait beaucoup de progrès dans les produits agriculture et on a fait beaucoup de progrès et nous attendons qu'il y ait plus de réduction des tarifs agriculture pendant l'année. OK? Premier point. Deuxième point. En ce qui concerne Monsieur le Premier ministre Ford, nous deux, nous voulons bâtir une nouvelle industrie automobile. OK? Alors, c'est quoi l'avenir de l'industrie automobile? C'est des véhicules électriques et des véhicules avec beaucoup de technologie et d'abordabilité. les trois choses. OK? Il y a plusieurs entreprises qui peuvent fournir, qui peuvent créer ces véhicules-ci, y compris les dirigeants chinois. Alors, pour un échange d'un petit morceau, du marché canadien, on a un engagement, nous attendons un engagement d'investissement au Canada, des dirigeants, des vrais dirigeants de nouvelle industrie. Alors, c'est un accord qui va créer l'avenir pour notre industrie.
Donc, ça veut dire une usine, ça, éventuellement?
Oui, ça c'est le plan. Ça, c'est le plan, absolument.
Annie?
Hello, Prime Minister Carney. CSIS has called China an enduring threat to Canadian tech and democracy, and some in the auto sector have said that Chinese EVs could pose a national security risk if allowed into Canada. And your plan is to increase the number of those EVs that are coming into Canada every year. Did you get any assurances from President Xi that China would stay out of elections, for example, and sensitive sectors before allowing more Chinese investment in many sectors, including the auto sector?
So, several aspects. Thank you for the question. Several aspects of what you said. The first is, and I'm going to refer to something I said a few minutes ago, which is we're returning to the levels of Chinese automobiles as a cap that we had 2 years ago, okay? Secondly, just to reinforce, that's less than 3% of the Canadian auto sector. So, again, let's keep that keep it in perspective.
But that's going up by 6.5% every year after.
Yeah, but you bring that, you compound that growth, and you're getting to about 70,000 vehicles at year 5, although the agreement has it reviewed after year 3. So again, it's still in low single-digit proportion of the size of the Canadian auto sector. Canadians buy about 1.8 million autos a year, just to put it in context. The second thing, but you asked, you had autos mentioned, but then you asked, if I may, a deeper question around our relations, and as you said, foreign interference, transnational aspects. The first thing I'd say is that part of the agreement includes a security aspect, greater cooperation between law enforcement on a series of cross-border crime issues. That's the kind of progress we need in order to address a range of issues, including illicit narcotics, but as well as interference. And then the second is that we have an understanding. These are some of the issues that we discuss in terms of our expectations in Canada, our red lines in terms of preventing foreign interference, not tolerating foreign interference, and addressing it when we see it. And as
I boiled that down to addressing it when we see it, as he's not believing it's a concern. I don't believe. I think he's a bit naive on this, to be honest. It should come with a CSIS increased budget to investigate these new deals further, not just look at it on a monetary level. Hey, I would love to see. The Chinese culture is very long, is very powerful. I could spend decades just reading it. I got no problem with there. Though there's no doubt in anyone's mind that foreign interference was really heavy. And we're the pea and they're the pod, in size when it comes to that stuff. I believe that he's he didn't get any, I don't know. I just feel that that's something that maybe still going on, though. CSIS has put a report out saying they don't see China has pulled back heavily, like in the last 8 months or so, heavily on the foreign interference meddling stuff. So this is just something that has to be monitored, like a monitored lizard, by the people. I seen a decent comment here. They took over Hong Kong and Taiwan. Taiwan is now, well, everyone doesn't believe that's going to be, independent for too much longer. And that could change everything. 2027 is the number. Everyone's concerned about 2027 because there was a big a white paper put out about 2027, and it was basically get ready for 2027. Now, hey, Trump may have been these 9 wars and all these stuff and bulking up America. It may have alleviated it. Now we're just in Post versus Kellogg's kind of commercial competition. I hope that's the case. I think everyone hopes it. The Chinese are funding factories in Canada that make... Oh, I never heard that. He's heavily invested in said companies. Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. I do like the idea of, okay, it's only 3%. We bring their products here. They're manufactured here. The Ford, the GM, they do corporate espionage, as they do it to us. They corporate espionage the crap out of the place, and then all of a sudden Ford has one similar to the BYD, and then it's all a decent mix. But we don't know. So the safety and security concerns have been alleviated according to CSIS papers. Now, will this deal change things? It just needs to be, checked out. The other big news that's happening is that the 2 Liberal MPs were basically told not to meet and not to meddle in Taiwan while they're trying to get a deal. And I understand that, Don't shit while you're eating, as some people have done. Basically they're like, hey, wait a second here. Every time we go to Taiwan, it ticks them off, but we're trying to get a deal. Maybe go after, or after March or something. I'm not sure. Leave your comment. I basically think that we're having a reset of the deal of the deals that we had going, and Carney is without major reassurances, except in the fentanyl part, which is, I hope, we'll see. If the fentanyl numbers, they go down, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, they're playing ball with us. It's a good partnership. But if the fentanyl numbers don't go down, then it doesn't. You can tell me all the rhetoric in the world. I won't believe you. I won't believe a thing. If those numbers don't go, the fentanyl numbers don't go down, deaths don't go down, then it's all a lie and it's all for money and it's a scam, and I'm like livid, and I'm going to do a nice blow up. You know what I mean? Verbal, of course. Verbal diarrhea blow up. Anyway, that's obviously a concern. We'll see.
Prime Minister, I've always taken this extremely seriously, just from the point when I got my security clearance well before I was elected leader of the Liberal Party. Thank you.
Next question, Christopher.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Christopher Nard from the National Post. Canola tariffs are not completely disappearing, and more importantly, they're not disappearing on all products either. What do you say to the industry, who is hoping, obviously, for progress on this, but will still be dealing with tariffs going forward in their second biggest export market?
This is enormous progress. The first thing is, this is enormous progress. We're dropping the expectation starting from March 1st, so in advance of planting, we're seeing canola tariffs. We fully expect canola tariffs to drop from 85% to a combined 15%. Approximately 15%. I'll use the exact language in the agreement, but we have a high degree of confidence that that's going to happen, and that's going to create an opportunity combined between meal and seed, a $7 billion market opportunity. That's the first point. The second is that the spirit of this agreement. So there's agreements and technical aspects of the agreement and expecting those to be followed. That's important. But it's also the spirit of what is a new partnership, a new era, turning the corner, historic agreement, building more broadly. That creates a series of expectations about where we're going from here, whether it's in canola, other grains, pulses, lobster, beef, pork, pet food, all these covered. So there's movement, and there's a real, it's a return, and actually more than a return, to Canada as an important agriculture partner with China.
Next question, Brian.
Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg News. Yesterday when you met with Premier Lee, one of the things you said in the public remarks was this partnership with Canada and China, this new partnership, sets us up well for the new world order. What did you mean by that? What is the new world order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing, plurilateral deals, if I can use that term, Trans-Pacific Partnership, the potential linkages between Trans-Pacific Partnership and the EU? Where is financial regulation, payment system regulation going to fit into that? All of these aspects, I'm going to use fancy words, like the architecture, the multilateral system that has been developing these is being eroded, to use a polite term, undercut, use another term. So the question is, what gets built in that place? How much of a patchwork is it? How much is it just on a bilateral basis? Or where do like-minded countries in certain areas? So like-minded countries, just to be clear, doesn't mean you agree on everything. Aspects, for example, on digital trade or agricultural trade, climate finance as another area, to move into areas of geostrategy, geosecurity. You will have different coalitions that are formed. So what this partnership does is in areas, for example, of clean energy, conventional energy, agriculture, as we were just talking about, and financial services, which we've talked less about, but the evolution of the global financial system, the role of the renminbi over time, the evolution of cross-border payments. I know it all sounds very dry, except for your organization, which I think takes an interest in it. These are important elements of how the system's going to work. And look, the expectation is that rather than these being developed necessarily through the IMF, WTO, and other multilateral organizations, it is going to be coalitions that develop them, not for the world, but for subsectors of the world. Okay.
Next question, Tom.
Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Perry with CBC. I know that you're talking about China offering stability. There are still, of course, though, concerns in this country about human rights,
yes,
about freedom of expression. I'm wondering where those fit into your calculations. Are these things that Canada just can't afford to think about because we've got to diversify our markets?
No, we fundamentally stand up for human rights. We stand up for democracy, territorial integrity, rights to self-determination. We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That means the following. We do engage with countries. We calibrate that engagement depending on our values and our interests. So that engagement is more narrow when there are those issues. We also have, if you will, a sort of value-based realism to the approach. In other words, we will engage on those issues. We'll engage with coalitions on those issues because that has more influence. And we will form coalitions with those countries with which we share those broader values. I will give you a current example of the last point, which is we are a member, as you know, of the Coalition of the Willing to back Ukraine. That is an example. Those countries in that coalition, over 30 countries, share values on a broad range, including all of those that I just mentioned. With other countries, our engagement is more narrow, it's more specific, and we keep within those guardrails. And for those relationships, we're very clear about where we will cooperate, where we differ. We'll have those engagements, but in a way that looks to make progress.
Can I just ask you a follow-up, sir? Like in your meetings over the last couple of days, did any of these issues come up?
Yes. Yes.
Could you be a little more
that was your follow-up.
I guess so. How did you discuss that in your?
We're going to move on to the next question.
How did you discuss that in your questions?
We're going to move to the next question right after it. En français, oui.
En français, oui, on a eu des discussions sur des sujets des droits humains, oui.
Next question, Maria.
Thanks. Maria Chang from Reuters. Just for a follow-up, can you tell us specifically how you raised these concerns about human rights? Did you address the issue of things like Jimmy Lai, concerns about Taiwan, violations of human rights in China in your discussions with President Xi?
Well, a couple of things. One is with respect to Mr. Lai, Canada led a G7 statement in the course of recent weeks calling for his humanitarian release, the foreign minister's statement. These issues were raised in our broader discussions over the past few days. With respect to One China and Taiwan and expectations, our long-standing policy, I think I answered this earlier, but just to be clear that we had a clear exchange in terms of what our policy is and a reaffirmation of, as I say, our long-standing policy. We have different systems. Let's take a step back. We have different systems, Canada and China. That has several consequences, one of which is the breadth of our engagement with China. We respect the differences in each other's systems. It does mean that our cooperation is more focused and more limited, but to have the effective relationship, we have the direct conversations. We don't grab a megaphone and have the conversations that way.
And we'll have time for one last question, Kai. Or David.
Thanks, Bill. David Aiken, Global News. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. I can shove to the front here. I'd like to know what Canada is doing to protect the integrity of Greenland. And related, China fashions itself a near-Arctic power and with some claims to Arctic resources. So I wonder if you could answer that question, what we're doing to help protect Greenland's integrity, and how do you feel about China's claims, such as they are, to Arctic resources?
Well, to several aspects of that. The first,
just like we protected the Alaska Purchase.
Greenland, the future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for the Kingdom of Denmark. We are NATO partners with Denmark, and so our full partnership stands. Our obligations on Article 5, Article 2 of NATO stand, and we stand full square behind those. Thirdly, with respect to our relations with Greenland, as you know, we've opened our consulate. As you may know, the Governor General is visiting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. There she is. No rest for you. Going to Nuuk in the first week of February. We'll be there. We're in discussions with our NATO partners and with Denmark about Arctic security through various fora, through bilaterally with Greenland and very much with Denmark, through the Nordic countries, Nordic Baltic 8, and as you know, just remind others that we've taken decisive steps in terms of Arctic security over the course of this year. One of the first things that I did as Prime Minister was to move our Arctic presence from 4 months a year to 365 days a year on land, sea, and in air, and we will continue to reinforce that. I will say that I had discussions with President Xi about the situation in Greenland, about our sovereignty in the Arctic, about the sovereignty of the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, and I found much alignment of views in that regard. En ce qui concerne le Groenland, alors, en ce qui concerne le président Xi ou la position canadienne en ce qui concerne le Groenland, c'est l'avenir de Groenland est une décision pour le Groenland et Danemark. OK, premier point. Deuxième.
Okay. That looks to be the end of it. Just repeating himself. Greenland. That's a purchase. It's not going to be a takeover. That's just the media spinning up fun, to try to sell newspapers. And Taiwan, it looks like we're dialing down that rhetoric. Their government, the liberal government, is dialing down the rhetoric on Taiwan. It's not going to be a part of it, Canada anymore, as they pulled their two members out of Taiwan while they were doing this meeting, which I kind of understand. Like, if you're going to you do it after you do a deal or whatever, because it ticks them off every time. But I think Taiwan is just it's a non-issue, and we're going to hope that they don't try to invade it. I don't know. Basically, I think he's like, I'm just staying out of it. I believe we're staying out of the Hong Kong. Jimmy Lai had a newspaper, Daily Apple, and they put him away for forever. And he just had a newspaper, and it was very, very, like, it was about the Hong Kong riots and stuff like that, and it was very gentle compared to what American journalists write. It was very, very nice and polite, but it doesn't matter. These issues, it looks like Mark Carney won't bring up. He's just not bringing them up. He's moving on from them. We're going back to the time before Hong Kong was taken over and the foreign interference in Canada. He's reset Canadian policy to that time with no compensation words or anything to the effect. He's just said, okay, we're gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, and now we have a 5-point plan with China. The ag, 3% of the vehicles this year, and then next year maybe, you know what I mean? And then that's 6% the third year. He said after 3 years we're going to do, so 9% of the vehicles in 3 years. Most likely, if these Chinese vehicles are cheap when they come here, when they hit our shores, they'll sell. Right, so and they'll probably last at least, they're on the road for 10 years, I think, I would assume 5-10 years. They're on the road, so they're doing the reassessment. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 50, right? But he said after the third year we're going to check to see if what's going on. Basically, it'll be just a rubber stamp, no doubt, unless there's major happenings, right? So it looks like that is coming. The idea is of I think he's trying to bring the companies here, but they have literally the size of San Francisco, a factory the size of San Francisco. I don't know if they want to bother even bringing it here. They have a big power plant. They're building in Turkey and Brazil as well. Maybe Canada will be another spot. I'm not sure, but it's not part of the deal. So they said 9% of the vehicles in 3 years they're going to do a reassessment when 1 out of every 10-ish cars is BYD or whatever, Chinese. It seems to be that is the direction he's going. The New York Times made it like, and so did this last guy, like, they're not going to invade Greenland. I don't think, and NATO, just silly talk. Just to get people all, he's so crazy. Yeah, well, if you make up baloney assumptions, he said, they asked him, would you invade? He's like, yeah, it's on the table, whatever, sure. He's like, if you make up all these things and then act upon, that's what basically a lot of these reporters are doing. And then what this other New York Times reporter asked him, are you thinking China is a more reliable partner? We sell 80% of our goods to the USA. We sell 5% of our goods to China. So you know what I mean? They're not even the same, even close. What's the reliable partner? 80 or 5? Come on, you know. But it's this idea of politics, of rhetoric, baloney rhetoric, and it's not even based on any piece of reality. Like Trump is that no one who has any sense thinks he's going to invade it. Oh, he could. He said he could. Yeah, because you asked him a question, and he's like, sure, whatever. It's not happening. They're buying Greenland. I don't think, just like they bought the Louisiana purchase from France, the Russia purchase for Alaska, now so it's like the triangle, and then the Greenland will be bought from the Danes. The Danes can't afford to keep it. It's such a tiny country, and they're having problems maintaining it now, right? The States is asked to put more and more to maintain it, and Trump says China or Russia will take it over. I don't think Russia will. They're money problems. But China, you know what I mean? Maybe Russia through China, you know, but whatever, taking it, that is more likely, you know, of if it's going to be a kinetic type of take. But America buying it, that's what is happening. It's not, you know, maybe it won't happen. It's a possibility it won't happen, but it looks to be that case. As they've bought very large pieces of land before. This is not something new, right? But we have a very media landscape that they're feeding off of what we don't know, right? If you don't have time to research all this stuff and get behind that, and they're feeding off of the you know, our ignorance, which is most unfortunate, to be honest. Now this deal is so fine lined. It could be good. We got a bunch of Chinese people, tourist industry, and all this great stuff. Will it have undue influence, as someone said, with their EVs? That could be. CSIS put it out. It said it could be a security threat. He didn't answer that question. He's like, it's only 6% of the cars, and it's going to be what he said is the low end cars. So it's the cheaper people. The cheap seats are getting these cars. That's what he said. Was that going to be the case? They sell. There's a Chinese car that goes for $100,000. It goes like 300 kilometers an hour. That may be selling like hotcakes here. It's an electric vehicle. It's like I did a little thing about. Like that's a possibility as well. It's not. It seems to be China has the top and the bottom. The middle, we'll see. I'm digressing, but definitely here. What do we have here? The world order deal. What? He just thinks it's a world order deal. We don't know what's happening. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Wait for, I think Doug Ford's head exploding will be happening. Probably, I think, I'm guessing. I'm guessing around 10 o'clock, he'll have a head explode Q&A.